Steelers get sweet revenge over the Cleveland Browns. They won their second encounter 27-14. This was a pivotal game for the Steelers because the rest of their schedule is so tough. And I know if you're a Steelers fan, you've been hearing that for weeks now. I have a lot of faith in the Steelers going out there and possibly only losing one more game for the rest of the season. They're starting to click on the offensive end, and they already have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the adjustments they're making on the offensive line, I love it. What I've been able to see over the last few weeks, they're keeping top pass rushers away from Russell Wilson at a high clip. Trey Hendrickson last week leads the league in sacks. They kept him away from Russell Wilson. He only got sacked once on the day. And today's matchup against Myles Garrett and the Browns defense, he only got sacked once. Myles Garrett went out there and had a legacy game a few weeks ago. He was one of the main reasons why they beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. They kept him away, and I understand he's dealing with a foot injury, but he was still able to go out there and compete. The offensive line is looking better, and they're giving Russell Wilson more time inside the pocket. And they don't have the same dumb penalties on the offensive line like how they had earlier in the season. A lot of that is because of coaching and because they're getting comfortable with the brand new system with Arthur Smith. But give Arthur Smith credit and give Mike Tomlin a lot of credit. George Pickens was out for this matchup. Right before the game, tip-off happened. It was announced he was going to not be able to go out there and play. He was dealing with a hamstring injury that he suffered in practice. And I was worried about that. But they had time to go out there and basically prepare without George Pickens. And on the day, Russell Wilson looked very good. 15-26, only 158 passing yards. Not every single game you have to go out there and throw for 303 passing touchdowns or 4 passing touchdowns. If you're just doing what the coach wants you to do, and you're playing through the run game, you're playing through the wide receivers in short yardage situations, that can get the job done. In today's game, it got the job done. Russell Wilson played very well, especially in the third quarter. Najee Harris, 53 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. He was not even the best running back on the day. Jaylen Warren was. He averaged 5 yards a carry, 47 rushing yards. Big Pat, 48 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Scotty Miller had a beautiful play on the sideline. It was a quote-unquote moon ball, perfect accuracy and ball placement by Russell Wilson. Catches it to the outside shoulder. Scotty Miller stepped up. You also saw Mike Williams get more acclimated this game without George Pickens because you knew other guys in the receiving room, they're going to have to go out there and step up with George Pickens not being on the field. Van Jefferson also had a receiving touchdown. Only 10 receiving yards, but it was a very good play by Arthur Smith. It was basically a triple option play. You have your RPOs. So you had a slant on the back end. Russell Wilson had the ability to run with the football or hand the football off. And you also had Van Jefferson to the outside. I like the creativity in the red zone. I've said a lot of bad things about Arthur Smith in the past and about his offense. That was a very good play call. And he got the touchdown. And that was really the touchdown that broke the back in this game for the Cleveland Browns. They went out there and they scored enough points to get them over the edge. This was a Steelers team just a few weeks ago against the Baltimore Ravens. They could not score an offensive touchdown. They depended on Chris Boswell, who has been phenomenal all season long, because we're seeing a bunch of kickers across the NFL, even top kickers in this league, miss field goals. But he's been going out there. He's been Mr. Consistent. You can make the case that he's the best field goal kicker in the NFL today. But you see the Steelers now score 27 points. They scored 44 points last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You're seeing Russell Wilson get more comfortable with the pieces around him and Arthur Smith having more confidence in him running the football. In today's game, Russell Wilson had 6 carries for 17 rushing yards. Not much, but usually you will see Justin Fields come in and run the football. They didn't check Justin Fields into the game. They ran the football with Russell Wilson on those read options, on those RPOs. And it shows you, hey, Russell Wilson doesn't have the same speed that he once has. But this is a guy that can go out there and he can still cause problems with his legs and he can still extend the play. It wasn't the greatest game by Russell Wilson, but it was very good enough and he was very efficient in this matchup. And it was a perfect game plan by Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith. Go out there and kill the Cleveland Browns short, kill them underneath, and then you take your deep shots here and there. And that's also another thing I want to give a lot of credit to Arthur Smith for. They're not relying on that moon ball anymore. They're running the football. They're throwing more screens. They're running more quick game. They also went out there and they were using time possession against the Cleveland Browns. They were milking the clock and they ran more up-tempo plays. And Russell Wilson has now shown over the last 3 weeks he can get the football out of his hand quicker. We saw this last year with Sean Payton. He was getting the football out quicker. Will he still have times where he stays in the pocket for a little bit too long? He holds onto the football for too long? Yes. But he's trying to take those deep shots down the field. He wants those plays to develop. And I also see a lot of analysts saying he's not throwing deep down the middle of the field. He is. He had a middle of the field touchdown to Calvin Austin III last week against the Cincinnati Bengals and against the Cleveland Browns in the snow game. So all those criticisms with Russell Wilson, he's answering those on a week-to-week basis. I look at the Steelers as a elite contender in the AFC. And I even said this after they lost to the Cleveland Browns a few weeks ago. I'm not going to change my stance here. They have a dominant defense. They have a quarterback now that's solid enough to get them over the hump. The only questions that I have would be Arthur Smith and the wide receivers long term, and that's it. But you're seeing Pat get involved at the tight end spot. They won a game without George Pickens, their number one option. You can make the case that he is their best offensive player at times. But George Pickens, if he can stay fully healthy for the rest of the season, that's going to be a major plus moving forward. They face the Philadelphia Eagles next week. I can see the Steelers possibly winning that game because of their edge pressure that they have with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And speaking of Alex Highsmith, he was dominant in this matchup. He missed the last 3 games dealing with an ankle injury that he suffered against the Washington Commanders, but he came out in today's game. He came out on fire. He had a sack. He was in the backfield the entire day. Give Landon Roberts a lot of credit. The Cleveland Browns went for it on 4th down. He swings around. He catches Nick Chubb in the backfield. The linebacking play is also very good. With Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, they have depth at the middle linebacking spot. Something they didn't have last season when they made the NFL playoffs. They had to call in Miles Jack. So it's those little moves that you look at what the general manager has been able to do to go out there and bring in those key pieces. This is a very good Steelers roster. Their secondary, I like it with Micah Fitzpatrick. Quarterbacks just don't test him at all. His mere presence on the field is more than enough. He hasn't had an interception in quite some time, but that's okay. He's doing his job. And sometimes just because defenders are going out there and they're getting a lot of interceptions doesn't mean they're very good players on the back end. This is a man, he plays his role. He can stop the run. He is still a top safety in the NFL, and he's amazing at guarding the deep middle of the field. They did let up a touchdown to Jerry Jeudy early in the game, but you saw the defensive adjustments made by Coach Austin, the defensive coordinator. TJ Watt went out there. He was getting pressure. The same with Cameron Hayward. As long as this front seven can stay relatively healthy, they're going to be good. It's hard to run the defense against the Steelers. Hard to run the football on this defense of the Steelers, They have one of the best defenses in the NFL against the run. And it's been like this for a couple of years now. Nick Chubb is not the same running back he once was. They only gave him 11 carries in this matchup. But at the same time, they were taking the run game away with Jerome Ford. And they were stopping Nick Chubb on 3rd down. And that was the biggest key here. The last time these two teams went against each other, 3rd and 4th down, those are tricky spots for the Steelers, especially on 4th down. They made Jameis Winston uncomfortable. I know you look at TJ Watt numbers right now, and you may say, hey, he doesn't like Defensive Player of the Year. Is he slowing down? For one, he's getting double teamed a lot. And also he's just putting pressure on the quarterback. It's not always about sacks. It's about going back there and putting that pressure on a guy like Jameis Winston and forcing him to throw those interceptions and forcing him to give you the football back, like how he did in today's matchup with those 2 interceptions. Shout out to Keanu Ben. He read a screenplay perfectly. That was the first interception that Jameis Winston threw, and that led to 3 points for the Steelers. Is their offense consistent enough to get them over the hump in the NFL playoffs? I believe so. That Ravens game just left a nasty taste in a lot of Steelers fans' mouths because they did not go out there and they did not score a touchdown in that game. But at the same time, they won that matchup. That's all that matters. Are you winning games? And they're winning in convincing fashion. They won this game in convincing fashion. They went out there, they dominated the line of scrimmage, and they won last week against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season in Joe Burrow. They forced him into uncomfortable situations. And that was a Joe Burrow that went into shootouts with the Baltimore Ravens, not once, but twice this season. So when I look at the rest of the Steelers' schedule, it is tough. You have the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day. You face the Philadelphia Eagles next week. You have to face the Baltimore Ravens again, and you have to face the Cincinnati Bengals. But at the same time, those could all be winnable games. The Steelers are better off when they're underdogs in those situations. But in my opinion, I'm not looking at them as underdogs in those games. When they go against the Philadelphia Eagles next week, if they can stop the run game enough against Saquon Barkley and they can force Jalen Hurts to tough situations, you could be in an upset situation there. And that is basically, it's a away game for the Steelers, but it's in the PA. You're playing the Eagles. It's just a couple hours away in Philly. So when I look at it from that situation, the Steelers fans are going to be there, and the same with the Philadelphia Eagles fans. That's going to be a very good physical football game. Then when they face off against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chiefs have been winning a lot of close football games this year, and they can't protect Patrick Mahomes. And what is the one thing the Steelers are great at doing? Putting pressure on the opposing quarterback. The only thing I would say is this: Joey Porter Jr. I just worry about him against top receivers in the NFL because he got flagged 6 times last week against the Bengals. In today's matchup, he did play better. He had a bad week last week. He had a bad week against the Washington Commanders. But throughout this entire season, on the whole, he's been a very good cornerback. I will give him that. The same with Dante Jackson also at the other cornerback position. But the only critique that I have about the Steelers is that you have to start off fast in the first half. That's it. At least walk away with 1 or 2 touchdowns. You could walk away with 14 points entering halftime. You can be in a very great situation moving forward because then the pass rushers can pin their ears back. They don't have to worry about the run game, and they can get after the quarterback. And that's when the Steelers defense is really at their best. Their secondary is still questionable, but I like where they're headed right now. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Steelers moving forward, and are they an elite contender in the AFC? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.